Looks like we are live and ready, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Meeting come to order. Regular meeting, Minnesota City Council Chambers virtual meeting, Monday, September 20, 2020. Roll call, please.
Ms. Rojas,
Here.
Mr. Nathan? Mr. Nathan?
George?
We can't hear you, George. Still can't hear you, George. Ms. Sweat?
Here.
Mr. Colbert?
Here.
Mr. Campbell? Mr. Campbell?
Yep, I'm here.
Mr. Morrison?
Here.
And George, can we hear you yet? You have no audio.
Must be something on his mic input.
Yeah.
Now,
Now we can. And we
All right.
got George. You have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Join me for the allegiance, please. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me, absence, we have none. Agenda approval.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
All those in favor, Rojas?
Aye.
Nathan?
aye.
Sweat? Okay, Sweat,
Aye.
Colbert,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Morrison.
Aye.
Agenda approval, consent agenda. How do you want to do it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For tonight's meeting, the minutes of the regular meeting, September 14th, 2020, and the minutes of the special meeting, September 21st, 2021, September 21st, 2020. And I have to apologize for anybody online. I just now was able to put the packet, the laydown on the website, and I realized I put it in the wrong spot, but up until 6 p.m. our server was down on the website. I wasn't able to get that laydown up there, but it is now, and I'm moving it.
Okay, motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
Seconded.
All in favor, Ross?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
Sweat?
Aye.
Colbert?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Okay, Merrill. Proclamations done. Public presentation prior notice done. Public presentations for items not on agenda. Anyone from the public online?
There are some people from the public, and I have a hand raised, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Laurel Hiltz, you are on the line.
Go ahead, Laurel.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Mayor?
What'd you say?
Can you hear her okay, Mr. Mayor?
Vaguely, yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, we're just in that time of transitioning away from our summer season and embracing the autumn and the fall. And with that, just the shifting in businesses and services for the community. So super thankful for all of those folks that served us throughout the summer and are taking a little, hopefully some well-deserved time off as we transition to the winter, and also all those folks that are continuing to serve us with good food and good groceries and all those great things. We're really thankful for all of you. And so I just wanted to put that out there. With that, today is the deadline that we put out as the Chamber of Commerce for people to turn in nominations for our Citizen or Business of the Year. So on Thursday at the October Chamber of Commerce meeting, the members will review those nominations and then vote on the recipient, and then that will be announced. And at that time, we'll make a plan to have a celebration, probably a physically distanced potluck or something. I'm not sure how we do it, but we will still celebrate them. So we'll look forward to that. And just in general, I think just now's the time that we're starting to make plans for what happens as we go into fall and winter as far as activities. And I don't have any specific event scheduled for the rest of this month, but in October, certainly we're going to begin to look at what happens around the Halloween celebration. So that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online?
There are more people online. Any other hands raised, Mr. Mayor?
Somebody else does?
I don't see any other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Committee advisory board reports. I don't think we have any.
It doesn't look like it at the time, at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Public hearing, resolution 21-09, resolution City Council, City of Sedalia, Alaska, authorize the acceptance of coronavirus relief funds from the Kenai Peninsula Borough in the amount of $84,207.09. Heidi?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is in the laydown on page 10. We just received the award from the borough today. And I apologize for anybody online looking for that packet. You should be able to find it on the city website on the front page under the meeting laydown. It wasn't until just now, 6 p.m. I was able to get that server to work. It was giving me an error message. But with that note, it's there and it is in the laydown page 10. And it's the borough it's a pass-through account through the borough to the municipalities, and the amount of $84,207.09 to be awarded to the city of Seldovia. And it still follows the same coronavirus CARES Act restrictions and guidelines as previous funding.
Thank you. Comments from the council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Karajudian?
Yeah, okay, it's still downloading on my iPad here. These monies are what we got that we're receiving from the borough, again, to give out to businesses. Is that correct?
Yes, a portion of this, about 50% of this has been designated for business, for that business relief program.
Okay, I'm definitely in favor of this and I'll be voting in favor of resolution 21-09.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
All right, Jeremiah?
Yeah, Heidi, do you guys, so if I assume the council will approve the use of these funds, do you guys anticipate coming back at next meeting with the budget on how you plan on spreading these out, or what's the plan budgetary wise on this?
If I may, Mr. Mayor? Yes, Jeremiah, in order to receive these funds, we had to have a budget broken out, specifying what the usage of those funds would be for, and I can definitely share that with the council at the next meeting.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Any other comments, council? If not, we'll go to public. Any comments from the public on this item? Hearing none, what kind of action do we want on this thing?
It's a resolution, Mr. Mayor, so if the council approves, then it would need to be moved to be adopted or approved.
Okay,
I'll make a motion that, sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution 21-09.
Second.
All in favor, Ross,
Aye.
Nathan, yours, George?
Yeah, aye. Now you're not hearing me? Jeez.
Go ahead, George.
Aye.
Swett,
Aye.
Colbert,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Morrison.
Aye.
Motion passes. Action memorandum 2102, confirming the appointment of to the Segovia Oil Spill Board of Direction.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
What was supposed to be in there?
Well, that's the discussion, Mr. Mayor, the resolution, I'm sorry, this is gonna be on page 9 and 10 of your regular packet.
That was resolution 2101, not two.
Yes, action memorandum 2101, correct, is on page 9 of your regular packet, and following that is resolution 2106, which was passed previously by the council on September 1st. And when that resolution was passed, it asks for the appointment of a member of the city council to the SOS board of directors. And we're at that stage where there needs to be an appointment. So I don't know if somebody wants to volunteer or be nominated, but we're looking for a council member to fill that seat on the board of directors to represent the city as part of our membership, which is what those funds go for, is the city's membership to the SOS board of directors.
Do we have a volunteer?
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask a question?
Okay.
Yeah, Heidi, I meant to look back on the minutes and I wasn't sure what day we had discussed this. But my question is, and I may be in total error here, did we decide at that meeting to actually have an annual allocation of $3,000? We've committed ourselves to annually donating or putting a donation forward of $3,000 was question number one. Number two was we really never discussed what, and that was, never really discussed what our objectives were or are. In that Seldovia has now committed $3,000 this year and perhaps in next year's. And what do we see as our objectives, and what do we see the person and the relationship between SOS and the city, if that's going to change? And if so, I think that discussion needs to happen with SOS in combined with what we have for an objective. And I guess in my mind, I thought we were allocating this one-time deal and then look at it every year at our budget time. In the past, we've had an in-kind donations to SOS. After talking with Walt Sonnen, he really didn't feel, he was actually quite surprised that the city could come up with $3,000 to donate and was happy to receive it, but was not thinking that it was something that would happen yearly. So I guess I perhaps am at fault that I don't remember that it's an annual allocation for one, and then what is our premise and what do we expect from SOS and what do we expect from the city and the person on the board? Thank you. I just had some questions. It's not direct, it's not answering your question about who would go forward. One is I will not be on the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to speak to that? Yes, thank you, Vivian. So in the previous discussion on September 1st, we were lucky to have Walt here to join us to speak to it. The SOS board is running in a deficit. So their insurance, I think, was between $8,000 and $10,000. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, a year. And they're not bringing any money in through that organization. And so they've been running over, or they're not bringing a lot of money in, I should say, through that organization. So they're running about $5,000 to $6,000 over a year, and they don't have very much left. I think they said they had about 12,000 left. So they're looking at about 2 years or less of service that they can provide. CISPRI has always kind of been in conjunction with them, and they're a valuable organization to Sispre, and the fact that they help do the oil spill drills and do any oil spill management from Holmes Lagoon, I think through Peters Bay. There was about 12 or so coves and boat bays and areas that they do the management of that area in. And between Todd Paxson, who is with Sispre, and Cassidy and Walt Sonnen, there'd been conversation about how to keep this valuable group going, what an asset it is to our community to have them here and how active they are, but how to support them and that membership. So through Todd Paxson's recommendation, they have changed and approved it at one of their last meetings to change that membership of the organization to a paying membership. So now anybody who volunteers to the membership, I believe, pays like $100 a year. And then Sispre themselves is the largest contributor. They're going to pay $8,000 a year to have them contribute. And they wanted to know if the city of Seldovia wanted a seat at the table, to have a council member on the board, to help make those recommendations, to help with those objectives, to help see where we would like them to go in the future, as well as support them a little bit financially. And I think $3,000 was the amount that they came to, that the city could reasonably support annually, to have that membership and be a part of that process.
Comments from the council?
How often do they have their meetings for SOS?
Do you know, Heidi?
You know, I'm sorry, that's not something that I know off the top of my head. I would guess quarterly, but certainly something that I just need to reach out, or we need to reach out to Walt and ask.
Any other comments from council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is an important organization. It's protected the environment around here for a long time. They practice to make sure that they're ready if something should happen. And I think it's important that we support them. I mean, in this day and age, I guess nothing is for free anymore. And if we have to pay a little bit, I think we should. It's not that much. I'm sure we can find the money somewhere. I'm certainly in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, gentlemen.
Yeah, I just had one comment. Yeah, I believe I just tried to source that information out, and the response was they meet once a month, usually the first Thursday of the month. So it sounds like, yeah, once a month, first Thursday of every month. So, and I agree, Heidi, I agree with your synopsis in answer to Vivian's questions and my mom's comments. I mean, I think it is, it's an important group that is, responsible for the response in the event we do have a disaster again, or a significant spill in the future. So I remember that was some of the discussion that we had when we decided to get on board with the $3,000 paid membership. So I'm certainly still in support of it. And I guess we'll see. Yeah, the last thing I've got time for is another meeting, but I guess we'll see what happens here with if anyone else has some additional time. I don't think, if a person could go attend, all 12 meetings, and or they could, we could go once, every couple of months if you couldn't make it. But it would be nice to get involved and understand a little bit more about what goes on there. So and have a voice, obviously, if there's some decisions that need to be made that will, would impact the community. So that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? If not, anyone from the public want to comment on this item? Hearing none, council, do we need somebody to volunteer now or think about it today?
Well, we could bring this, if you guys wanted to postpone the action memorandum, we could bring it back at the next meeting if somebody, if you need time to think about it.
You said Tuesdays?
Thursdays, first Thursday
Thursdays.
of every month.
Yeah, I could do it for a while.
So you're gonna volunteer for that?
Yeah, I'll do it for a while, and then in a year or so, then somebody else can give it a
Okay.
whirl.
Thank you, that's all that problem.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Mayor, if we could get a motion approving action memorandum 2101 confirming Mr. Colbert, that would be, then we have that on record.
Get a
Yeah,
motion,
Mr.
please.
Mayor, I'd go ahead and move to accept action memorandum 21-01, confirming the appointment of John Colberg to the Seldovia Oil Spill Board of Directors.
Second,
All in favor, Ross,
aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Swett,
Aye.
Aye.
Colbert,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Morrison. Thank you, motion passes. Moving on, unfinished business, new business. Consideration of placement of small business economic developmental building, HEA, quote. Heidi?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is on page 11 and 12 of the regular packet. I did reach out to HEA and I received a response back from them. And it was the same as previously quoted for the Gateway Pavilion, which was that $500 worth of improvements, and those improvements below are gravel pad, trailer, improved gravel driveway, municipality water well, municipal sewer, or DEC approved septic. Otherwise, it's $5,600 for if there's no primary line extension needed. If a primary extension is needed, it's $10,000 to $15,000. And I did respond back to her and I asked about that determination if a primary extension was needed or not. And the response I received was it would depend on what the engineer or an electrician would recommend for service in that area. I didn't get a chance to write up a nice memorandum for you guys, but that was the conversation. And so I guess we would have to proceed with seeing what size service area is needed for that lot and for those buildings.
Council comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I can jump in on this one. So, yeah, I mean, it would have been nice if they would have said how much is available there, but maybe it's just the chicken before the egg here. I would think that a reasonable amount to give them to get some feedback on would be maybe 400 amps of service, 4 100 amp services if we were going to do a shared meter base like we talked about. You know, or you could do two scenarios. You could do a 4 100 amps or 6 100 amps if we were going to do a six slot board on that. So that would at least give them a load calc to work with to see if the current transformer and the current load can handle that, or if we're going to have to do a primary line extension. So they should be able to answer that fairly quick, I would think.
Where are you getting the 400 amp? Where's that coming from? We don't need 400 amps.
100 amps for each service.
For each meter.
For each meter would be 100 amps. Could serve 100 amps.
Okay,
So, I mean, it's not a massive service, but these are small buildings. Unless they do a full-blown restaurant or something like that, but I mean, the load calcs on that, they're probably not gonna, probably a 50 amp service would be more than enough to run lights, power, unless they start putting big equipment in them. But for any small retail, yeah, 50 amps would be more than enough, and certainly 100 would be way more than enough.
I would go with the 6 at 100.
we have 2 buildings, why are we doing 4 meters?
Room for expansion.
Okay,
I missed that. What was that?
I said, room for expansion. The mayor asked why would we go with 4 or 6 meters? You'd have room for expansion.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
go ahead, Vivian.
I appreciate the information, Jeremiah. So it sounds like we need to go back to HEA so we can actually get a real estimate of what we're talking about. And if we're talking about starting with, I mean, if we go with 4, or they'll give you a price on 3, 4 of them, 5, 6 of them, whatever it might turn out to be. But we need the information because the $10,000 to $15,000 for primary extension, a primary extension, Jeremiah, if you could fill me in, what is that? How is that different than if no primary line extension? What is that? How is that determined?
Most likely they'd have to either add or upsize a transformer to handle that lot.
So what
they
we're
would have
asking
to-
for.
And that would all be dependent on the size of their conductors and then the size of the transformer to handle that. So right now, maybe that current transformer, if it's, I don't know if it serves, the Linwood and the Tide Pool or Jack and Ava's both, and then the next building right next to it with the liquor store and stuff. So depending on the current load, that transformer, however many kVA that can service, it's probably not anywhere near capacity right now. I mean, they would have come back and said, yeah, that transformer is already tapped out. You guys are going to have to do a primary line extension for another transformer. So if that's not the case, then there's obviously, it tells me there's probably some reserve capacity on that current transformer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Mr. Mayor?
comments? Yes. Go ahead.
Is that me?
Yes, George.
So assuming there is a little capacity left on that, we could end up with a couple of services and not any room for expansion in the future. Is that correct?
Well, I think that's the whole question here is that they need to tell us. So if we come back and say, yeah, we're considering doing we want a service drop to be able to facilitate 4 meters at 100 amps a piece or 6 meters at 100 amps a piece, then they would tell us, no, we've only got 200 amps of allowable service before our primary line extension is going to need to happen. So I think that's the missing piece that we probably should have given them in advance, and then they could have answered that question. So I think if we give them something along those lines, they should be able to turn that around very quickly by the next council meeting, I would think.
Well, where I was going with this, I don't think that I'd be in favor of spending another 15 grand on a program where we've already got 20 in. I mean, it seems like we're out of the realm of possibility with that much, if we had to add that much to it.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, one more comment. Yeah, one more question. I guess, Heidi, when we're asking HEA about that transformer at that end of town, maybe at the same time, we can, now that we've decided that, okay, we can ask for 4 to 6 100 amp units. Why don't we ask the same question about this transformer that's down across in the lot down by the harbor parking lot while we're at it? That way we know if that even has capacity,
That's a good
either one
question.
of the sites. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just had one follow-up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we have to remember that in that original budget of the 25,000, I believe we had, Heidi, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had $6,000 or something plugged in as part of that. Our current costs, I think we're only standing right now at 12 to 14,000 of actual money spent. And then we would, there was a $6,000, I think, or somewhere close to that was allocated in that budget of the initial 25. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor,
Right.
yes, that's correct, Jeremiah.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
It was between 6 and 7. I would have to
Yeah,
go back to paperwork, but yes, there was definitely at least 6.
Okay,
I want to ask you something, Heidi.
Yes.
How much money is allocated for finishing off the inside of these buildings?
I would have to look back at the previous discussions. We had it broken out by how much had been spent, and I have to look back at that. I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
But they do plan on finishing off the inside? That's what we expect?
I do believe that they are, and they ordered already windows and some bead panel for the walls. It's gonna be very, very simple on the inside because it'll be up to the renter to be able to put a table, a chair, what they need in the space. But I do believe, and Bobby might be able to speak more to that, I do believe that windows and some bead panel were already purchased for the inside.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I can answer some of that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the total that was allocated for all was 25,000. That did include some of the money, original 5,000, which was mentioned at first when the buildings were going to be where they are now. That was included in that 25,000. We've ordered the materials to finish the inside. Some things we've already have, some things we've had to order. And the guys are going to be doing the work unless, you know, they end up being really too busy or something, and we might have to get a little help. There should be enough money to do all that because it's pretty simple. And on that note, I just want to say one more thing. Is this the building thing on the agenda tonight to also get a vote to move them or not?
You know about that, Andy?
I can speak to that, Mr. Mayor, certainly. At the previous meeting, it was discussed that this should be a topic that keeps coming up on the agenda until a decision is made. So that's why I left it listed as that consideration of placement of small business economic development rental buildings. And I tied in the HEA quote, but should the council have a decision to make tonight, it would be an appropriate action for this item, or should the conversation need to be continued on, we'll keep having it on the agenda.
Okay, well, on that note, one thing you have to remember, the longer the buildings are not ready for folks to look at so that we can get some rentals, then the less, you know, it's better if we decide, if we're going to move the buildings, it's better to decide that, get them set where they're going to go, regardless of the HEA thing, because the first year, if it should happen where we can't afford the HEA thing right now, you know, if somebody needs electricity, they can use a little generator. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not anticipating anybody needing a great amount of electricity anyway in the summertime. So if they are going to be moved, I'd like to see them moved and get to where they're going to be so that we can stop all the controversy surrounding them. Because the longer we wait, the less folks are going to be interested in them. And whether or not they're going to be as interested in them where we're thinking of placing them, which, you know, I kind of like that idea too. But that's to be found out yet when we advertise them for rent. So anyway. Anybody got a question?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I do.
Okay,
I think we're gonna have a whole lot better chance of renting them, Bobby, if they're ready to go when we show them. I think what we've got to show right now, we're gonna have to say, well, gee, we don't know where they're gonna be, and we don't know if there's gonna be power in them or not. I think
Well-
we'd be better off waiting until we know what we're doing before we do it.
you know, and I understand that, George, but I also want you guys to remember what you voted on. This was all brought up in the very beginning when all this started, when I brought this to council in the first place. I mentioned the generator part, you know, and blah, blah, blah. That was all. I don't think people are gonna care. I think what they're caring about right now is some of the controversies surrounding them. They don't know where they're going to be. I asked Heidi the other day if we've had any interest in them. She said no. So that's not encouraging at all. So I guess the worst case scenario, you know, we can stick a for sale sign on them and sell them.
Sorry. Mr. Mayor, if I
Oh,
may.
go ahead. I'm done. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Bill.
Mayor? Yep, thank you. I think it would be good for us to get a quote back from HEA and see where we're at, but I agree with Bobby, to get them moved before winter sets in would be a good idea if we're gonna move them off of where they're at right now. But I would be interested in finding out where we're sitting with HEA and then make a decision from there. And I think once we get them moved and once the little boardwalk is connected between them and they're cutesied up some, and it gets closer to spring, summer, or late winter, people can actually say, okay, and then we advertise them. Right now, we can't advertise them really. So I think we have time to kind of put all of our ducks in a row. And I think one of the first things for me is to hear what kind of quote we're going to get back from HEA. If we're going to go over budget of the 25,000, or are we still going to be under budget, and then work forward and move them, and just move them one time and not have to think about if we have to move them again. We also need to consider that lot down by the liquor store, and where that lot line is between, so we know exactly where that lot line is between the owner of the liquor store, the old mercantile, and the city's lot. I'd like to see that demarcation line. I think that's something good to have, if it isn't already known. We kind of roughly talked about it the other day when we were down there, but I think that's something to paint on the ground so we know that we're moving those and we can visualize them. But I would encourage us to move forward with HEA inquiry, and then move forward after that and decide, and then have a motion about where are we moving them. And I agree, Bobby, we need to get them in place before snow flies, I would say. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councilman Scott?
And they're both basically, both locations will be about the same price. Like there's no primary
Both locations.
for getting power to them.
Yeah, like the liquor store and where else?
Or down by the pavilion or by the liquor store. They're
Yeah, I
both
thought they
basically
decided
the
not to
same.
have them.
If they're both basically the same cost, I would be for just moving them and go forward.
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe we know that information yet, so I think we need to get the information from HEA about both of these transformers and find out what their capabilities are before we move forward. So I think we need to hear from HEA after we ask that question to them, and then we're working on facts from HEA. Thank
Just
you.
one. Really?
Yeah, when we were originally talking about these buildings, they were gonna be moved every winter. Did that go by the wayside? Once we put them up there, if we put them there, that's where they're gonna stay for the duration.
Do you know about that, Heidi?
I think, Mr. Mayor, I believe that once they were actualized and seen, and the concept of having electricity to them and the difficulty of moving them back and forth. That it would, the reality is it would be easier to let them sit. Yes, they can move, but if they're hooked up, you know, they are on skids, but.
Well, that's what
We
the
don't want-
question was, if we are gonna move them, like originally,
Mhm.
they were gonna go to the boatyard every winter. I think I'm kind of leaning to where Bobby's thinking. I say spend the money and finish the insides of them, prep them for electricity. And, it don't take much to prep them, so you can hook a generator up to them and they would have electricity. And, that would save a big expense that we might not need. We have no interest in them right now. So I'm kind of with Bobby on the generator proposal. You put them in a box and exhaust it out toward the arbory. Ain't gonna, they're not gonna be obtrusively loud. And they'll serve the purpose. You can buy a lot of generators for 15,000.
Yeah, I want to make a comment. I was thinking the same thing. A generator would be far, far cheaper than involving HEA. in this thing. Other comments, council?
I've got a comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think we're being short-sighted as a council if we don't plan for permanent power. Something everyone's losing focus on here too is the HEA credit for permanent structures or a structure that can meet the criteria. Basically, the secondary fee, which is the expensive fee, either the 5,000 or the 10 to 15,000. If we follow the criteria that HEA has, even if there are no permanent foundation, and a permanent foundation can be something as simple as, as simple and inexpensive as sonotubes. And we don't have to do a foot or anything, but we could do steel pile sonotubes. We could do something fairly simple there. Then you've got options of a gravel driveway, a gravel pad. It gets a little interesting when they talk about you have to meet 4 of the criteria if you're not a permanent foundation. But then they've got like trailer with lean-to. I don't really know where that's going. And a building that is too large to move without special equipment. So right away, we meet 3 out of the 4 without even trying. So I think, people got to understand, planning takes time, right? Unfortunately, yeah, we had all winter to do this. Coronavirus came in and kind of whacked everything out of proportion here. You can go ahead right where those buildings are at right now and start finishing them out. There's nothing that prohibits you from getting a couple guys down there and going, if you have time, if you have resources that you want to do that. Absolutely, you would have to go ahead and rough in power to them. You rough it in, plan on it. It's going to go to a breaker panel, and then that breaker panel, whether it's hooked up either with a generator transfer switch outside or it's hooked up to a line extension, that's an easy deal to a J box on the outside of the building. So that, there's nothing that stops the whole process from moving forward. We don't have to move them today, but agreed, here in the next couple of weeks, I think we need to be prepared. If we don't have, 4 votes to drive something tonight, to go ahead and plan after our meeting, next meeting, when we get the answers from HEA, regardless of what that is we have to make a decision where they're going to go one way or another. So then I would say if we do that, we're ready to direct the staff at that time to get them moved so they can get in their spots down there. So that's all I have.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we were going to, as soon as our material arrives and the guys have got time, we were gonna talk to them and see, we're gonna get started on finishing the inside regardless of where they are. I just think, like I said before, I just think it would be better if we get them settled somewhere. So people will feel more comfortable with where they are, wherever that is, and we can get them rented. My goal was which I guess is probably out of the question now. My goal was to get people at, before the winter to commit for next spring. So I definitely would like to see them ready by next spring. I mean, if we don't have them ready by next spring, I think that's a huge mistake. That's all I got.
Okay, any other
I
comments?
have
Council?
one follow-up.
Ms. Pearl?
Yeah, I had somebody ask me today is when and if we move them down there, is that gonna now become the vending area? So vendors, example, the red bus, will that be moved up there? That would be designated vending area?
I don't think there is a vending area per se, is there?
There is, Mr. Mayor, in the code, the vending area is specified as between the harbor master's office and Lollipop Park.
Right, but these will be considered vendors up here. I mean, all businesses are vendors, right?
Well, it is in the code, and I can look up that definition, for what it is exactly. If you would like, we can look up that code.
So I guess we're gonna need to change that to a vending area.
Certainly, you would probably want to address a lot through a resolution or ordinance, depending on which, I have to look into that, depending on which direction you guys want to go with it. For economic development, the lot that they're on right now was already opened by resolution for economic development. And you could go down the same path for this new lot is opened up for economic development. It wouldn't necessarily have to be vending, it could just be rentals, but they could be vending if you guys want to expand that area.
So is that area already considered business district?
That area is in commercial marine or commercial business is what it is now, yes, Mr. Mayor, or yes, Mr. Morrison.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
What I was going to say, answering Pearlie's question, I think this is a conversation the council had that we need to, that lot down there next to the liquor store needs to be defined. So when and if we choose that lot to be the property that we move these buildings, then we need to identify the use of that and through a resolution. So I think that's another step after we determine, after we get the info from HEA, that will be one of the steps to determine before we move forward and moving those buildings, that we need to determine what that lot is and have it as a script so it is official. Isn't that correct, Heidi, what we were talking about earlier in the game of this, that lot, along with several other lots around the city, need to be identified and directed as far as what their uses are.
Go ahead.
Yes, we have talked about in the past, developing a land management development plan. It's something I know that the staff would really like to see, because we do regularly have different pieces of city property come up into question throughout the year, and their use and how they can be utilized appropriately. And so certainly that would be a valuable tool to have on hand. Currently, that lot is not in our code at all, and it is in our fee schedule for trailer parking, but it is not defined anyway in the municipal code. So we could go that path and have that management plan and work through all of the properties, but I think that that's going to be a longer term goal and probably not a piece that can be put in place before this determination is made. But especially with trying to get a new administration in, but it could be defined by resolution at this time, just like the last one was, and move forward that way. It'd be quicker than trying to address all of the properties in the municipality, or all the municipality properties, I should say.
Okay. Any other comments, council? Now we'll move to public. Anybody from the public care to comment on this? Do we have somebody online?
There are a few people online, Mr. Mayor, but at this time, I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand.
Okay, fine. Back to council, what are your wishes? On this matter? Sounds like we need more time.
Say we get the answer from HEA and make a decision.
Kind of sounds like the consensus is that we want the buildings up here. So why don't we just go ahead and put that through? The buildings will be there. And we'll get a quote for there from HEA.
Yeah, that's basically what I was thinking. Everybody's is kind of decided that that's.
Seems like we're all on the same page that
What's
what's
that?
there.
What's the lot number and the location?
You know,
Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the location isn't really what we're talking about. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to move them down there and then find out that it's going to cost a lot of money to hook them up to power and have to move them back. It isn't like we're going to wait months. I just don't think we're ready to vote on this. We don't have enough information.
I myself have been waiting for 2 months to get temporary power hooked up with where I'm at, so hopefully it'll go a little quicker for this.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean, when I've thought about this in terms of location, and I mean, I've thought long and hard about that. There is two issues. There's location and there's cost of power. I don't think cost of power is going to be the driving factor on this whole deal. I think it's the long-term development that we talked about. And I just think in the end, the lot that's down there where the boat trailers are being parked on now, I think that's the better lot for a longer-term development for these buildings and to allow for future expansion. I think it's a great idea for any temporary vending, any vending that is going to be done on city property. It's got parking. It's got everything. I mean, it's got everything down there. It starts moving a little bit of business towards that end of town. I think there's a lot of pros to going down there. And again, I don't think the cost of the electrical is it. I mean, like I said before, most of this electrical could be paid for if we do this right. So, I mean, ultimately, I'm going to decide. I'm going to end up voting to move those down to that lot on the other side of the liquor store. I mean, whether it's tonight or in 2 weeks. So, I mean, I think what I'm seeing possibly here is I think I can count to 4 that maybe there's 4 here tonight that would be in favor of moving those down, just getting them moved down there, whether or not they're going to be serviced by power or not. I think we still need to keep going through with this whole process and understand what it's going to cost.
Okay, thank you.
So then we just need a motion to move the buildings to the lot with the harbor now. Would that do? Or do we need the lot number?
Well, so follow up, Mr. Mayor.
Pardon me?
I have one follow up to that.
I didn't understand.
He has a follow-up to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we want to be clear that if we, and again, we might be rushing it if we do it tonight, because if we move them down there, we all need to be on the same page of where they're going to sit, how they're going to sit, what direction they're facing, the spacing between them. So, I mean, we might want to at least get a sketch on paper here. I think tonight might be rushed. I think next meeting would be more appropriate. But I think at that meeting, what we need to see is a sketch of the proposed layout, assuming we can find the lot line. I know because I know there was some idea that people wanted them kind of like facing to the north from kind of right where the people are parking alongside the liquor store now. I'm absolutely against that idea. I'd like them kind of how they are down in the other lot right now with the front doors facing the parking lot, kind of like the trailers are, kind of backed in there at a little bit of an angle. We talked about leaving enough space where the lot line is for the guys still to be able to come in there and push snow. So there's a few things to consider. I think we can all get there. I don't know if we're going to get there tonight though. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Okay, you want to just table this for now? Till next meeting?
I can bring back more information at the next meeting, Mr. Mayor. if that works for
Okay,
everybody.
that'll be good.
That'll work.
Okay, we'll do that. Moving on. Proposal for bear-proof trash enclosure in the city of Sedonia. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is on page 27 and 28, and it's come up a couple of times recently, I should say of your regular packet. Layla, our lovely Layla, went ahead and obtained a few quotes, different quotes for bear-proof cans. There are on page 16, the plastic cans that you can get from HEA, which I believe we have a few at the RV park right now of these plastic cans, or have them actually, and then I'll have to double check that. We may have exchanged them out for the bear-proof cans. Yes. So I believe we purchased some of these black ones and we exchanged them out for the more of the Bear Saver types at the RV park. So that's what they have now there. And the quotes are a little high, especially with shipping. But I did talk to Jason with Fishing Game, or I should say Layla and myself talked to him and Jan about grant opportunities. He did give Jan a lead on maybe possibly one grant opportunity for bear-proof cans. It doesn't sound like there's a lot out there right now, but Jan's request to the council was that that you guys could allow some time this winter for her to research granting opportunities first before making the purchase and hopefully getting a little bit of funding to help with it. And with that, I guess it would just be a matter of, does council know what type of can they'd like to pursue? Are the plastic ones for more variety, what you guys are looking, or for more quantity, what you guys are looking for? Or I did take the liberty of making a placement map, and we just purchased 5 or 6 of the double cans and had them more strategically placed through town. There wouldn't be as many cans available, but certainly these have high capacity and they're stable. They would be cemented into the ground.
Okay, thank you. Comments, council?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Judy.
Yeah, I had a question. It occurred to me, well, 2 things. Great job on the maps and the layouts of where the cans are at this time and proposed. I would actually add to the list the double cans like we have out by the outhouse, out by the airport. I think that's a way to go because they're actually easy enough that human beings can open them up. I've seen some of the bear-proof cans that were almost impossible for some people to open up. So you want to make them accessible, and those that are out there are the type to go with. I'm in favor of that type of cans. I would also put one at the bridge because that's where the bears were getting into those trash cans there. I have a question about the ones that are out. When I walk out there and see them knocked over this summer when the bears were out at the long-term parking, which is state DOT property, the city puts those out just as a favor because we're watching our garbage, or is that state property that we're putting these garbage cans on? Maybe we could encourage them to buy a couple of garbage cans out there. The state for the parking lot out there. And I think the grant idea, I think that's a fabulous idea. So I really appreciate the work you've put into this, and I would encourage the city to go with the double cans and maybe talk to Fish and Game. Maybe they've got maybe a vendor that they work with that we could maybe go in with or something of the sort. But I appreciate the hard work you put on this and your maps placement. Again, I would add one to the bridge. Thank you.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I didn't put one by the bridge first off because the city doesn't own property at the bridge. There is an easement through the state, if you remember, but we would have to go through a DOT permitting to be able to place, or at least DOT engineering for the bridge to be able to place anything beside it. So I can pursue that if that's something that the council wishes. Secondly, there is the double cans out at the airport. I'm not sure about why the cans are placed in the airport parking lot, if that's part of our MOA or not, and I can double check on that. But I do know that the city crew goes out and cleans up, we take care of that outhouse and that garbage by that outhouse per our MOU with the state. And I'll check on the cans out there, I'm not sure.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just have a follow-up with Heidi. So Heidi, you're saying that in order to mount the garbage cans, the double metal ones next to the bridge where we keep the plastic garbage cans, we would have to go through a process with DOT because we would be mounting them to the cement
Yes.
instead of just the loose garbage cans?
Right, certainly. I think if we're gonna install anything on property that's not the city's property, we would have to go through the process of getting permission from them in order to do so.
And the sidewalk is not our property? Is there a certain distance from where the bridge starts?
No, it's a state highway,
Oh.
so it's.
Oh, this sidewalk, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Jeremiah.
All right, I've talked a bunch tonight, but I got to chime in on this one. So I think we missed the mark on this. We've only got this partially right here. A major fundamental part of this is what we're talking about right now is the community-based cans. What we haven't addressed is the community-based problem of our trash. So this gets, it's not a complicated issue. I mean, we have a behavioral problem this year with the bears. There's no berries. So the bears are coming to town and they're eating trash because it's easy. That's the whole problem about bear-proof containers and why we're having this discussion. People are not being responsible with their trash. Now it gets a little even more complicated because those of us that have learned and are trying to be responsible with their trash and putting it in the sheds, even at the harbor, the bears they're getting really aggressive and they're ripping sheds apart. They're ripping doors off. They're eating through boards. They're going to get the trash unless we have containers that are going to address that problem. So this is the first part with the city sponsored trash cans. And I would agree. I think, more is great. It's a great idea, but I think what we need to do is change people's behaviors. If we can't afford more, then just start removing the trash cans. I don't think we need to have some strategically placed around town, but we don't have to have them everywhere for sheer convenience if they're going to cost a fortune. Change people's behaviors, make them go find a can where they know there's a can. Prime example, the two Vivian mentioned out at the long-term parking lot. I saw those numerous times dropped over and trash everywhere. And I thought to myself, now what's going to happen if those two were just simply not put there? Well, I'm not going to throw my trash on the ground. I'm going to just go find a can in town. I'm going to go find an easier can to dump it to. So, I think that's the mentality that we need to take. We can only do it. We can't solve all these problems. We have to be strategic about it, like the one at the bridge. Okay, if we can't bolt something there, then it's a combination unit. Then we get a large unit that's a bear-proof standalone container that we can take away and put in the shop every year. We put it out there. We don't need a permit. We just do it. So rather than asking the state permission, we just do it. We know it's going to be a problem. The next part of this is we have to start addressing people's individual cans and garbage. That's almost becoming a worse problem than the city cans. I mean, Facebook and Chatterbox is blowing up all over it with, I mean, it's the same people will put their trash away in the same can and they won't do anything with it. And the bears come back and dig it out the very, 6 hours later. This isn't a complicated deal. Now, I'm not expecting the city to, given our situation with the lack of a police officer right now, for you guys to start driving around and issuing fines. But we need to start issuing fines here if people aren't going to take this serious, or we're just going to have to start shooting bears. Simple as that. And it ain't going to be a big surprise when people start freaking out, when we start having to shoot bears because bears are trying to pry into your front door of your house. That's already happened. It's going to continue to happen. So we got to start getting serious on this. And as soon as we get a police officer, it's got to be a crackdown on this, on the trash cans. It has to. We had this discussion last year and it was deemed, I mean, we got nice because we know these cans are expensive. We weren't going to force everybody to, go buy one of these bear-proof containers, but the language is there. You're responsible for your garbage. You don't need a bear-proof container if you take some sort of action to deal with your trash one way or another. If it becomes a habitual problem, pretty soon your fines are going to cost way more than it's going to cost to go spend a couple $100 on a bear-proof trash can. So that's my rant.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I agree with Jeremiah.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, I agree with Jeremiah on this one also. So we had a little bear problem here last week, or about a week and a half ago. We had a sow and a cub, and they were just wreaking havoc with garbage. Now, it was accidentally that the garbage was accessible to them. And it was, but they broke into my little shed and got the dog food. I didn't have any garbage out, but so we took care of all that. And the garbage problem was addressed and they took care of that. So since then, the bears then left our little area because there was nothing there for them to get. So, if you can't take your garbage yourself, then maybe somebody else could take it for you to the dump. Now, a couple days later, I saw on the Chatterbox where somebody was complaining about the bear getting into their garbage. And I thought to myself, how did that happen? So that being said, you can find a place for your garbage. Either take it to the dump, put it in your house, put it somewhere where the bears don't get to it. It's pretty darn simple. And I agree. I think as soon as we've discussed this last year, and I think as soon as we get a policeman, if it happens, a bunch next year, whoever it is going to have to go around and issue fines because it is in our codes. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just one follow-up here. Thought just came to my mind here. So taking a proactive approach. So some that came to me. So last week when they hit me up and they ripped my doors off my sheds at the hotel like 4 straight nights, right? I screwed it on there. They came back and they ripped it off and they didn't like what I had. So they went down to the harbor and ripped their doors off and the same thing. So when I thought to myself, well, I don't have anywhere, we're gonna put this trash out. I know obviously I don't have a bear-proof container that, where they can bat it around and not make a mess of it. What about if we contacted either Hopkins or the borough? I'm just thinking of some of these other municipal waste areas like Moose Pass, right? They've got a dumpster accessible year round. Those gates don't lock to where, and it's a bear-proof one where it's like, matter of fact, like the dumpsters that you guys kind of showed there in the council packet. What if we talked with the borough or asked Jim to talk with the borough about getting a dumpster out at the dump that's accessible on the days when the dump's closed. So that if we wanted to go take our, that the community would have a place to go take their trash, mainly food waste trash, put it in there. And then on Hopkins dump days, he could use his equipment to empty that dumpster. Now I know that it's a roll off type dumpster. Maybe it doesn't work too good dragging it with the loader. I don't know, but maybe there's some options, or there's some 6-yard dumpsters that he can dump with the forklift or something. So I think there's options if we think about this, but basically, yeah, we need some way to get our garbage safe on the non-dump days, that is maybe an option. So just a thought.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, John.
I agree with Jeremiah on that one. People take their garbage and bring it somewhere else and drop it off, i.e. the harbor, the city garbage truck. Garbage was thrown up and down the street, food waste. After dump day, in front of the gas station, you go out and it's full of garbage bags, house garbage bags. And it's people dumping their house garbage in other people's cans and stuff just to get it away from their house. We take it and put it inside where it can't get to it, but there is the problem with the smell. So I agree with Jeremiah that we need a dumpster at the dump with probably the best idea that's accessible 24 hours a day. Somewhere people can go and throw their stuff. I really like that idea. Thank you, Jeremiah.
If there's no other comments, we'll go to public comments on this item. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to chime in on Jeremiah. That was one of the best solutions I've heard. And I think we need to follow up on that, see what we can do about getting that, because you're gonna get at least a bag of garbage a day in a normal household. So, yeah, great idea. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to public comments. Anyone from the public? Have their hands up?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do see one. It's Miss Laurel Peltz.
Okay, go ahead, Laurel.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I just wanted to speak to a few issues as relates to the bear issues that we're going on and dealing with right now. Number one, we understand that the trash cans being bear proof should be a priority. And so I would ask that the city and possibly the tribe and the borough work together to source those trash cans in such a way that enough could be purchased with people making commitments to purchase, their own ones, but that the cost of shipping be a shared cost, and perhaps there would be a way that there's there's always a grant for something, so you just never know. And I think that would be something that we could look at with environmental, with the EPA, with the borough. There's ways to pursue that. So my recommendation would be to one, find a way that we can make the cans accessible to our community so that people can afford them and that they begin to use them. Additionally, I will say I live in the Red Roof district of town, where there's about 5 or 6 houses and 2 of them have chicken coops. And those chicken coops are prime targets for the bears. And the bears are all about getting into those chickens. Well, not much further down the road, there's another chicken coop where the bears don't bother at all. And that's because it's been an electrified fence around that coop for at least 10 years, and they've never dealt with bear issues. So in the ordinances, however it needs to be, I think having electrification around chicken coops should be considered if it's not already there. And then again, we look at how do we support our community members in the purchasing? How do we work together as a team to make it affordable for people? But there shouldn't be a reason that people are not electrifying their chicken coops. And in town, there's a number of chicken coops. It's interesting that folks who live in the Seldovia Village area have navigated a number of bears for many, many years. And yet they've found a way to live in such a way that the bears are less likely to be a nuisance. Not always, but they're less likely, and they're less likely to have to be put down. On a third note, I see that the bear trap is up down at the boardwalk. I don't know if that's because a bear created an aggressive or dangerous situation, or if it was because a bear was a nuisance. But I do know that the agreement between ADF&G and the city, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand it is if we trap a bear, we don't get to take it out into the woods and release it and hope it never comes back. It has to be euthanized. So I think it behooves us to do what needs to be done to prevent that having to happen. And I'm not of a mind that we just shoot it simply because it's a nuisance. And I will say again, I live in a neighborhood where there's 2 chicken coops and the bear goes after those chicken coops. And I have had no issues with a bear being aggressive towards my household because I have no chicken coops and I also have no apple trees. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? You see anybody, Heidi?
Not at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, back to committee, your wishes, council. You need a motion on this?
Not at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on then. City manager interview questions and telephone intercom schedule. Heidi?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is on page 27 and 28 of your regular packet. And you'll notice that one of the applicants from the last meeting, from the review, dropped out. So we're down to 2 applicants. They are scheduled for this Thursday. The first one at 5:10 p.m. So the meeting will be at 5 instead of 6 because he's in a different time zone than us. First one 5:10, and then the next one, she wasn't available till 6, which actually works out really well because that gives a little bit of, we might have a little bit of time just between the 2, but each interview should be a half hour. They both get the same amount of time, so that's why the 10 questions is kind of the recommended amount of questions if you want to do a half-hour time frame. We can extend that if the council wants, but that's just kind of a general interview template that a lot of places use. But you guys, it's up to you guys if you want to change that. But half hour, 10 questions, they all get the same questions. And it'd be great to hear from council what questions you guys would like those to be. Part of that memorandum has the questions that were used last time. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at them and see if they're still applicable, or if there's a better question that you have in mind that you'd like asked. And then also keeping in mind that if there's a question that doesn't work for the first interview, there can always be a second interview with that person in person. And that question, and that interview being a little bit longer, that question can always work there as well.
Thank you. Comments, council comments.
Mr. Mayor?
Right,
Yep, I missed it. Didn't we use all of these questions? You're not asking us to whittle down from the 11 questions for the telephone interview, are you, Heidi?
No, I am not. These questions were
Okay.
used in the last interview, the last interview process when Todd was hired. So I'm just asking if these are still applicable questions.
Okay, and we used 30-minute interviews last time, is that correct?
That is correct. With the chance for them to follow up afterwards, but 30 minutes for the interview questions, yes.
Okay.
Other comments?
Mr. Mayor, just a follow-up. Looking over these questions, I think the 11 questions satisfy, for the initial interview, they satisfy what I would like to see answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Right, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I agree with Vivian. Yeah, I think those first 11 are kind of tried and true, so they're pretty straightforward. You could get a wide variety of answers on those, so that's a good gauge of, to get into a little bit on the thought process of where the applicant's coming from. On the in-person interview questions, I'm still, I don't remember how it was answered last time, but number 7, I know that's kind of a weird question. Describe the color yellow to someone who is blind. It's just I don't remember what the answers were on that. It's just, I don't even know how I would really answer that on the spot. So maybe I guess that's some sort of looking to see how creative a person can answer that question. But the rest of those questions also are pretty straightforward. Run into a number of scenarios, how you might get an answer back. So yeah, I'm good. I'm good with all these questions. The 30 minutes for the telephonic seems adequate. I think it'd take about 30 minutes to go through all those 11 questions. So.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah, I think those, the telephonic interview questions still apply. So I'm good with that. Thanks.
Other comments? If not, we'll move to public comments. Anyone from the public have a comment on this issue? You see anybody? Heidi?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. What are your wishes, Council? Just for discussion.
If it's a consensus of the council, Mr. Mayor, we can move ahead with these questions at the interview on Thursday. So this is what everybody will be provided with. And yeah, we can move forward.
Okay. Everybody agree?
Agree.
Yep, no objections.
Okay, moving on. Administration reports, treasury report. Is there no treasury report?
Not yet, Mr. Mayor, we are in the process of it.
City manager's report, see laid down.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you'd like to speak on that real quick. Just to keep you guys updated, I know it's kind of strange now that we don't have Cassidy here. I do miss her. But following off of her template, it's page 11 of the packet, and I'll make it really quick, or lay down, I should say, and I'll make it real quick. City of Seldovia is still working on COVID-19 management and mitigation. I don't know if everybody had a chance to see, I forgot to include it in this laydown, that there was a press release from the City of Seldovia last week in conjunction with Smoky Bay Air. We spoke with the Kenai Peninsula Borough beforehand, management. I did speak with SVT as well, just working really hard to partner with our local healthcare providers, especially SVT and local businesses, so that we have that information and we can share it to the community and have that shared message be accurate and correct. I think that's important because there certainly was a lot of different rumors that were surrounding that initial case that came through town. KPB CARES funding allocation, that now that resolution's been approved, that will become part of the budget. I will share that in the application process, we did have to designate what those funds would be used for, how they would be allocated, and I can share that back with council at the next council meeting. CARES Act small business grant relief. We were waiting for that KPB CARES funding for part of that funding for the small business grant relief program at the City of Seldovia. And so those checks will be going out in a total of $80,000 to 14 businesses for that grant program. CARES Act expense tracking is ongoing. Jan has been part of this process since her start here and is doing an excellent job. So we really appreciate her being able to continue to to track those funds and give those reports. Cell phone service, internet service issues. I hope everybody had a chance to read in their packet, there was a letter from GCI stating that the funding for improvements to the Salovia area was not approved in the FY21 budget. So I know that Cassidy spoke with them before she left, and that's something that I can pick up, or the new administration can pick up, certainly, because that is a priority for our community to have that service be updated and upgraded for everybody's accessibility. Professional service agreement, and Cassidy Cameron did stop in one day last week. She signed the consulting contract, and it is set to expire December 31st, 2020, if not sooner. When I spoke with her, I believe it was Thursday, she was planning on being back on working on some of the city projects starting early this week, maybe today. I need to touch base with her. Police chief position hire, that's part of that. I think that's a really big part of that professional service agreement, is that her continuation to work on either the hiring or restructuring for that police chief position. And she did get good feedback from the council at the last meeting, so hopefully she's able to move forward from there. And I'm hoping for a report from her or an update to the council at the next meeting. FY20 audit, we are still waiting, but I know that's in the works with Altman. Wastewater sewer lift station repairs. I've been in contact with Alaska Pump and Supply and Kevin with ARW and VSW. New replacement pumps, we've received a few quotes for either repairing the current pumps we have or replacing them. It is very expensive. And after talking with VSW, there is a grant opportunity through the DEC that they recommended that fits our needs, that we would probably qualify for, hopefully. That application period closes on October 30th, 2020. So Jan was gonna go ahead and fill out the application for that grant, and we'll see what happens from there. But certainly we wanna try to pursue any funding we can for that project, because it's gonna cost us quite a bit. New Year's Eve's fireworks permit, it's that time of year again. I did get a chance to speak with Alvin last week, but I did speak with his family, he's out fishing. And it sounds like they're still planning to pursue having fireworks at the airport on New Year's Eve. So with that, the city's moving forward with that permitting process. I don't know if you guys remember. Actually, you know what, now that I think about it, we have a 5-year permit with them. So I just need to let them know the dates and we should be good. I'll double check on that and give you guys an update. I meant to get a hold of them earlier, and I'm glad I didn't, because I just remembered that. So we have a 5-year permit with them. I'll get in touch, make sure we're still good, and we'll move ahead. That's fantastic. LED light project, Layla wanted me to make sure I included that the conversion for this building is almost complete, except for the fire hall. And just to take a note, outside of the fire hall at night, if you see these lights on, they've all been updated outside around the building as well. And I have bear management on here because, as Laurel touched base on earlier, we did have a complaint in the community. There's some concern that there's a dangerous bear in a residential area. We've been working with Jason with Fish and Game, and while it's not the preferred method to trap a bear, because yes, if you trap a bear, you have to dispose of them. We can no longer trap bears and then release them. That's not allowed by Fish and Game. We are moving forward with a management plan to try to take care of this one bear because it has presented a problem for a citizen. I did take the liberty to talk to that citizen and would like to continue with the council in the future to put out an education campaign and really work hard and diligent with our community and with our education process for bear management, because it is sad. It's sad to lose a life that way. And there are things that can be done. And so in speaking with that citizen, that was a large part of our conversation was, you know, the bears are hungry, they're coming down, they're coming in. And sure, it might be habituated to your area and it might keep coming back if it's removed. But more than that, if that bear is removed, the chances are another bear is gonna come in because they are hungry and that is an attractant. And that's what needs to be taken care of is the attractants to help prevent having these bears, you know, becoming a nuisance the way they are. So that's high on my priority of something to work through this winter is how to do that education process. And I really like Laurel's suggestion of trying to find a way to help fund some cans for people's personal use. So certainly we can, Jan wanted to look into purchasing the city community cans, but part of that we can also look into how to provide cans for the community. There's not a lot of funding out there right now. We did already speak with Jason at Fishing Game about it, and it seemed like it was probably pretty slim chances that there'd be funding, but certainly we're open to trying to partner with people and bring those in if that's what council wishes. And that's it. There's the ongoing city projects, but that's where we're at. Oh, on a good note, I forgot, sorry, one last thing. Talking about COVID management, starting on page 13 of your pack of your laydown is the memorandum from the Office of the Lieutenant Governor about the regulations for small communities. So yay, Cassidy, I think she did a really good job pushing that. I was sent this information today from our legal. We're not sure yet about how that information will be disclosed to communities, but I will reach out to DHSS and see if that's something that we either have to ask for or if they'll automatically disclose. But according to these regulations, we should now be able to receive information about COVID cases in our smaller community. Thank you. Sorry.
Any questions for this? Riley?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, Heidi, on the cell phone service, that's going to be an ongoing issue that we're going to have on the council's table discussion and seeing what we can do about it. Is that what I heard from you?
Well, certainly it's been an ongoing discussion already, and something that, you know, they've been here to visit before GCI. They came to the council meeting. They've been in discussion with SVT.
Right.
And so now
Right.
we just need to find a path and avenues forward.
But as of their last letter where they said they have no funding, you're out of luck. That's where it's sitting right now. So we need to, as a city, come up with a plan of action of where we can move forward. So that's why I'm saying this is a discussion item that we'll keep after. And it's also on your docket. Is that what you said, Heidi, as interim city manager?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And the bear management, I totally agree with the conversation we've had, I think, but we need to put the onus on, property owners, people's garbage, and then come up with programs that people could get garbage cans that are bear proof. But all in all, people need to take responsibility. If you remove the temptation of the bear, then he or she is gonna find someplace else to go. If they don't have it around, then they have nowhere to go. I mean, they'll climb up and get an apple tree, but at least they won't be tearing down your door or whatever. So I totally agree with the conversation tonight. And it's something that we need to move forward with education for the community and actually put some responsibility on property owners, those who are not being responsible. I also would encourage, and if we need to put it in our ordinance, that if you have chickens in town, that you do put up electric fence, something of the sort. So if we don't have that, I would like to see that written in our ordinances. And actually asking those who do have the electric fence, do they find it working? I know this past weekend, I think even the one that had an electric fence got hit on, but maybe they had it shut off. So I'd be curious, I should ask that person. But thank you, Heidi, nice report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I like the electric fence idea and going along with what Jeremiah was talking about. I wonder if your dumpster idea if we could have that in town rather than at the dump, it would be a little more accessible to people. I'd suggest we build a little trailer. We could electrify it so that it wouldn't get broken into here in town, and it would be still accessible to folks. Also, you know, the harbor garbage and maybe your garbage, you could be protected with an electric fence without a whole lot of folderol. The other thing I wanted to say about GCI, you know, they're a public utility. There's bound to be a whole state agency that's involved with controlling them. Maybe we should talk to them and see what you know, what we can do through them to get some service here.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Yep, I would agree with George and Vivian. I think in regards to the letter from GCI and the no tower upgrades of 2021, there's no way we should take a passive role on this. I think we need to scream, kick, and fight from now until it happens going forward. I had a one-on-one conversation with Cassidy on her last day, and she was about fit to be tied because they basically went back on what they had told us had already taken place with the funding being committed for that tower project. Now, granted, there may have been some things that changed in there, but I know we've been squawking for a long time about the issues that we have over here, and we're not anywhere near their priority list. I get it, because we're a small town. We don't have a huge customer base, but we do have a number of people in this community that are retired, have either worked for either ACS or GCI, have connections. If the city needs help in this, I think we need to keep this conversation at the forefront and consider maybe a task force or a stakeholders working group in town so that our city administration is not alone on this. And I agree with George. Yeah, there's regulators in this, and I think we're getting left out, hung out to dry on this. We need to be squawking to our senators, our representatives, all the way to the top until we get this done. The squeaky wheel is going to get the grease on this one. So yeah, we got to go all the way back to DC, then we keep screaming. Simple as that. Real quick on the persistence on Cassidy's side and some of the other smaller communities in regards to the letter from DHHS. Yeah, that's kind of good news to see. You know, it all depends on how that information comes out, but I think that's a win for all the smaller communities and getting access to you know, to some level of information on the COVID front in order to help better manage the problems in their own communities. And then on bear management, obviously that's got to stay at the forefront. It is a little surprising that with all of the bears in town, the limited number of reports of, I haven't heard any myself, of aggressive bears, especially with all the sows and cubs around. I can't believe nobody's been charged yet. But yeah, this is, so it's only a matter of time, given that number of bears, that, you know, there's probably going to be an incident at some point. Let's hope to God that it doesn't involve a couple kids walking in between a sow and cubs, or it could get ugly real fast. So this is a serious matter. We got to get it dealt with. George's idea on the dumpster in town. So that's where I initially was thinking, but I'm trying to think how to maneuver that if we don't have a roll-off truck, etc. But then he just brought up a great point. For $10,000, you can get a hydraulic dump trailer that could be towed with the city's pickup truck that we could put, it would basically be damn near the size of same size as a 40-yard roll-off, maybe a little bit smaller, but it could be towed with a 3/4 ton pickup truck. You pull out to the dump, you go over to the pit, you hydraulically dump it, and you're done. You're back in 20 minutes. There's no reaching the trash out. There's none of that stuff. So I think this was good conversation tonight. I think we can come up with a workable solution here that's not going to break the bank on this going forward. So appreciate that from everyone.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I do see one from the public.
Okay, then,
Okay, there's a Mr. Henry Kroll. Henry, can you hear us?
Yeah, I just unmuted there. I had an idea with those trash cans. They you can get oil drums really cheap, and they do sell clamps for them. I don't know. I'd have to research that, but I just had an idea on that. They're really tough, and you can't break into an oil drum. But they'd make really cheap trash cans there. We could find a way to turn them into trash cans.
Thank you. Moving on, chief of police report none. Harbor master's report, see lay down. Public works report, see lay down. Information items not requiring action. Election day for the borough and city is next Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. Executive session none, council mayor comments concerning items not on agenda. Ross. Ross.
Yes. Thank you for all the good information tonight and what we put forward. Appreciate everybody's time. And we just keep on working on what we've got. Great ideas for tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Nathan.
Yeah, is anybody else having problems with the echo in what comes out of our offices there? I can barely understand what Heidi is saying just because of an echo in the room there. Anyone else having that, or is it just me?
No, it's not you. We'll have to talk about either microphone placement. Heidi, do you speak into a microphone, or is the microphone far away? And same with Dean and the other council members.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so currently the microphone is right in front of me. That's probably why there's an echo, and I apologize. I didn't realize that was happening. ACS, my day has been very busy, and actually part of that day is ACS came in today and hooked up our new internet service for this room. So I'm hoping in the next couple of days to get together with our IT. We do have about a dozen mics that we can set up around the room and a couple of audio speakers to be able to hear. So we'll have a lot better of a setup here shortly. We've just been kind of going off the bare minimum right now. And thank you for letting me know there's an echo. I apologize. Is it with everybody or mainly me? Because I am like a foot away.
Yeah, Heidi, I know exactly how to fix this. In another life, I had the same problem with the sound system, and there's a particular mic called a piezoelectric mic that will eliminate the echo, and they're not expensive. Let's see if we can, I'll do some research for you.
Thank you, George.
Sure.
Sweat. Hello, Sweat.
Yeah, good meeting. Thanks for all the comments on everything. It was really a good meeting, I thought. Heidi, you're doing a terrific job. I want to tell you, thanks for all the information that you've gathered and put together. So that's all I've got.
Colbert.
Good meeting. Thank you, everybody. I have one comment on the bears and the bear-proof container. Have you ever seen a bear try and get a piece of ham or a chunk of chicken or turkey out of a container and is unable to get to it? They become very, very unfriendly. And they tend to beat up everything around them, including people, other animals. Anything smaller than them is in a world of hurt. Which is why I like Jeremiah's idea of a central dumpster you can reach at the dump 24 hours a day. You put a bear-proof container in a neighborhood with kids, you're gonna have very angry bears because there will be something really tasty in there and you can't get to it. So if you've never seen a video of a bear, what they do when they can't reach something, because there's lots of them out there, they go haywire. Thank you.
Campbell.
Thank you, everyone. That was a good spirited discussion tonight. So appreciate all that. Thank you, staff, for preparing everything. And then just a reminder on the election, remind everyone to vote. And if if they're not going to be here in person, to vote absentee. Heidi, that is all open and goes right up to the day of the election or the day before the election?
Ms. Rare? Yes, correct. Jeremiah, right now absentee voting is happening in the city office, and we can do borough and city elections. We cannot do the state elections quite yet, but that'll be happening 15 days before the general elections happening in November. But right now there is absentee voting. Today was the last day to apply for an absentee ballot by mail, but for both, I think tomorrow is the last day for the borough for an absentee ballot by mail. But today's was for the city, and the borough did have the city of Seldovia on their application for by mail, and we did get a couple of people off of that. So certainly we are open and available for anybody who wants to vote early or cannot vote on election day.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Morrison,
Yeah, it's a great meeting. I think our bear problem, instead of nuisance bears, it's a lot of nuisance people. I have chickens over there and I do not have electric around. I've had bears coming in and ripping my door open and getting grain. They haven't bothered my chickens. And I don't know that I've heard of anybody actually having their chickens eaten. But anyway, that's immaterial because they're hungry, they're gonna find something to eat. Some great solutions on the electric fencing, I think is a definite solution. We're in the bear's backyard. So I think we need to take precautions and try to help the bears out. I don't want to see all the bears dispatched, and there's a lot of cubs that are getting habituated to come into town and get garbage, so. Anyway, thanks. It's a great meeting.
thank you. I have to say this, council members, some time ago, I had a meeting with Cassidy and Heidi. And they reminded me and tried to get me to enforce Robert's rules. On the agenda, any item that comes up, each council member can respond to that 2 times. So as not to prolong these meetings and get into discussions. If you want to have discussion on any item, then we set up a separate meeting. But these meetings are becoming prolonged, and I'm not upset about that, but we're trying to follow Robert's rules. So in the future, I would ask you to collect your thoughts before you make comments and try to follow Robert's rules. Thank you. Good meeting. Next regular meeting will be held on Monday, October 12th, 2020 at 6 p.m. And the elections will be certified at that time. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey,
Have a good-
thanks. Have a good night.
Night all.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Night.